What is going on, y'all? KM Best here, joined by guest host Ordinary Harry for this episode of 8 Cubes. We're going to start off with Strange Supreme, a 2-2 with the ability to absorb one created card per turn, and it gets +2 every time it merges. So this is a card that has synergy with Squirrel Girl, with Demons from the Hood, maybe, with Kate Bishop, maybe. Where do you see this card ending up, Harry?
Uh, it's an interesting card. Like everyone, the first thing they see and the first thing they uh, deduce from looking at this card is probably Arisham, because that's the premier deck where you generate cards, random cards, and merging with one of them is pretty good. But I don't think that's where this card is going to shine. I don't think it meaningfully improves that deck. I feel like this card can be really good in hand decks, but not hand decks. You know what I mean? Because it's there's anti-synergy there. You don't want to merge your generated cards in a hand deck because they're going to get buffed by hand. Maybe as an alternate, if you don't draw hand, and maybe there's a little bit of synergy that you can look into there. But in general, decks with randomly generated cards usually do well because, believe it or not, there aren't that many bad cards in Marvel Snap. So when you're generating random cards, you're probably going to generate a lot of good cards as well as a few bad ones. But what the advantage you get by having all the knowledge yourself while your opponent doesn't know what you're going to play is huge, right? And that's what these kind of decks lean on. So I feel like Strange Supreme has a lot of good potential. Maybe even create some kind of new archetype with generated cards, parallel to hand decks. If that doesn't happen, then he's just an additional card.
I will say this. I think that the way this card looks to me is that outside of the things you mentioned, I don't expect him to be good in RSM. I don't necessarily think he's better than Victoria Hand in those hand decks. I think he pushes against her too strongly. But there are two cards that really stick out to me with this guy, which is like number one, Mysterio, and number two, Debris, where suddenly this is a card that will be like, you play this, you play Debris, you are not clogged, they are clogged. Things like that come to mind as like, that is a very interesting direction to take this. The worry is, and there have been decks before in Marvel Snap that are built around like Mysterio, Debris, Mockingbird, Sasquatch, and then like Viper packages to like turn the Mysterios into upside / downside depending on how things go. Maybe we can even play Squirrel Girl in that context again because of Strange Supreme. The ability to clog your opponent and then unclog yourself for fun and profit is a powerful one. The problem is when this card comes out, other people will also be playing it. And so then you're not going to want to give them the Debris Rocks. And you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, if they weren't playing Strange Supreme, this is an Annihilus type card, right? Like, that's the profile I'm describing, where if you're playing a deck built around it, you lose to when your opponent is playing a deck that's not built around it, because you play the Debris, they play a good 3-drop, their Strange Supreme eats their rocks, your Strange Supreme eats your rocks, you have the same card except you played a Debris. And so like there's this weird thing that goes on with a card like this that is so not necessarily limited, but like narrow in scope. It does like one thing very specifically well. And so while I think that in theory, this is the kind of card where we've seen cards like this that they come out and it's like, okay, week 1, not going to be that good. Week 2, once everyone has stopped playing it, then it can actually show up. I think this card has a greater than normal amount of week 1 syndrome. And a card like that is like Khonshu was like that, where it was like, you couldn't really try any of the Black Bolt stuff with Khonshu because everyone else was already playing normal discard. But Khonshu sort of proved that it was at least a card that you could play. Things like that are common in Marvel Snap, and I think they're going to be more common with Strange Supreme, who is an interesting and powerful card, but maybe too narrow in scope and too easily dealt with by opposing Strange Supremes to have a successful release.
It is also very weak to Shadow King, even though I think there's a little bit of Shadow King right now going around. So there's that. I don't think this card is gonna have a weak one syndrome.
Hmm.
Because I feel like not a lot of people are gonna try the Clog route with debris. And even then, like there's ways to play around it because you don't know what you're playing against, right? When you're queuing into a game. So you play a Strange Supreme, they play a Strange Supreme. If you don't play them on the same location, you just match them with your debris, and then you're good to go. So I feel like, yeah, that's a great idea that I didn't think of. But I think the card has potential, but I'm not so sure because lately a lot of cards with potential showed up, and then their potential got never, you know, fully got utilized. Yeah, like
I
what's
will
your name? The destroy card,
fire hair.
the two fire here. Yeah, that card like looked incredible on paper, and then in practice, you just once you start playing here, you just realize that it's too awkward. She's demanding too much of you, of the deck. You need to do too many things.
Yeah, I mean that's the advantage that I think Strange Supreme has, where it's like I've played decks that are like Mysterio debris decks before, and they're like a reasonable option, you know? And this is a card that goes in that. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, like, I can play Mysterio. It's not the greatest thing for Mysterio because, like, it'll eat the one that turns into the real Mysterio and only get 2 power out of that, but it's not bad. And so you have, like, decks where this is, like, a legit card, but I also don't really know about a couple of interactions. Like, if this will this card eat a Kate Bishop acid arrow that gets sent over to me? Is that still a created card if it's on my side? I think it will. That seems good.
It
But what
should.
it won't eat is like a green goblin or whatever, right? So it's not good enough into Clog to be an anti-Clog card. It's good against Debris, it's good against Kate Bishop, but they're still going to be able to like Titania, Goblin, Doc Ock you. And I'm not sure that makes it worthwhile as like an anti-Clog tech card, which is a role that this card could have filled but is not fully filling. Moving on to Infinity Ultron, a card who I think is better than people are giving it credit for, but still probably not worth purchasing, is my general vibe take on Infinity Ultron. At 5'6", he's just a bit low to be worth doing what he's asking. If he were to continue at 5'6", it would require some pretty massive buffs to the stones, I suspect. If they were to make him a stronger card on base rate, this would be a much more acceptable card to play and then not get anything out of. But as is right now, I feel like he's too tied to the stones to be worth playing. Specifically, the purple and the red stone, double the power, and then create a copy of a drone with Ultron's power. Typically going to be the best way to use him. I've seen some flashes of, Danish Hela type builds with Infinity Ultron in them that are actually pretty interesting and useful. I've seen some of various versions of the V-Hand deck, of the Agamotto deck. All of these are things you can do with the card without throwing too much equity away. But on the whole, I think that this card right now does not end up worth purchasing unless they add some power to it in some way.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like they shouldn't have been so afraid of this card, especially with snap packs coming very soon. I feel like the whole issue of, oh, this card's too strong, I spend my resources now, or it's too weak and now you buffed it, I didn't buy it, I gotta wait a year to see it again. You know what I mean? That issue is gonna go away, so they can afford to be a little bit more generous with stats and numbers on cards, and if they land too high, they can tone them down, and we won't have these issues of, oh, I spend my resources. Okay, whatever, you spend your resources, we all did. It's better for the health of the game, and it's more fun when a card is stronger. Infinity Ultron is one of those cards that I would get just because I think it's very easy to tweak. There's so many different aspects of the card you can change. You can change, the obvious things, the card itself, cost, power, and so on and so forth, but also the stones, like cost power on 6 individual stones. That's huge, right? There's so many ways to buff the card. I love the card. I think it's super fun. I think it's a breath of fresh air for this month that has been a little bit stale as far as new cards go. And I really do hope they change it, and in the future they're a little bit more bold with the releases, like just do what crazy stuff, and so we at least get to have some fun for a little bit before they inevitably tone it down.
I think on that topic, it's worth talking about a common complaint I've seen recently, which is that things feel stale. And I think things feel stale because of the lack of magnitude happening in card releases and in OTAs, where it's like one of the things that I think is sort of undeniably true about the last, I don't know, let's say 3 to 4 weeks of Marvel Snap is that it's been balanced and there's been a wide variety of decks and a lot of different types of things are playable, and like you can do a lot of different stuff and have success with it, and that seems like the kind of thing that people want, but in practice it feels like what people actually want is change by any means. And what comes along with a bunch of different decks being viable is that these are the same bunch of different decks that have been viable for about 4 months now. We have Bullseye Discard, we have a Scream deck, we have a Sam Wilson Tempo deck with Juggernaut, right? Like, these are shapes that you're familiar with. And to someone like me who gets familiar with the shapes of decks pretty quickly, that's not ever something that I really like consider as like a massive downside, because most of my games are played in that state where, like, in order to get better, what I want to do is learn their deck as fast as possible and understand what it is they're doing so that I know why they're snapping and why they're staying when I snap, right? That's just sort of how I approach things. But I think for a lot of other people, seeing the same stuff is not nearly the enjoyable experience it is for me. And so that the fact that we have this and the fact that there have been complaints about the level of power that new cards have, I mean, I think those things are related, right? This is all like one holistic thing where those decks are really good, Scream and Sam especially, I would say. And the reason that other cards that are releasing are falling short is not necessarily because those cards aren't good, but because they can't compete with Sam, Scream, or whatever, right? It's not that they're not good necessarily, it's that OTAs have not dealt with like the dominant stuff in the metagame. And if you're the people doing the OTAs, I can understand looking at this metagame and being like, this is awesome. This is a great metagame. What is the problem? And the problem is that your player base has gotten used to things changing drastically, if not every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. And it's been a long while since something changed drastically.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit weird saying that things are stale, because if you look at the meta,
Yeah.
there's not a repeat deck for the top. I'm not looking at the very top of the meta here. This is the info that we have, but and it's it's limited info at the same time, so we don't know how true it is. But from the info that we have here, like, I'm looking at the top 12 decks, and there's not a single repeat deck, like not even close, like nothing with the same cards. Like the closest there is Discard, but one is Bullseye, the other one is Khonshu. They're so different, actually. Like their game plan is everything is different. They play it so differently, also, and it's very weird to say that the game and the meta feels stale in this state, but it's true. It does, because having like 12 different decks on your top 12 is like every card gamer's dream, right? It means you can play whatever you want. Whatever you enjoy is viable, and you're not limited into you either play this one best deck or you can't play the game, but at the same time, we're so used to things being fluent and ever changing, and all the time when there's a new OTA or a new patch or a new card, there's like these new toys that you get to play with and experiment, even if they're not the best. At least they're fun or whatever, and you're doing all this stuff. But right now, it just feels like it's 12 decks that have been here for a long, long, long time. And I think that's the issue, and also combined with the new cards not being very exciting, not fitting in fun decks. Like, for example, Goliath is a card that's huge, in my opinion, from this month, the best card of the month, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And he did bring ongoing Thanos back. But at the same time, ongoing has been an archetype for such a long time that it doesn't feel like it's something new.
He's also a kind of boring addition, right? Like he's just a guy
Yeah,
that's big. Like it's like okay, that you're doing awesome. Like what people I think really legitimately want is they want a card like Firehair to come out and be good. That's what they want. They
exactly.
want like 2 weeks with something that feels broken. That's like actually I'm going to be honest. I think what people actually want is like 2 weeks that with something that is broken that nobody else is allowed to play. But in the absence of that, they want the at least thought that they could stumble onto something that is broken, right? And a lot of these cards are good. I think Goliath is good. I think Kahori is good. These are cards that I am currently playing and climbing with, right? Like they're good cards. They're not
It's just
exciting
boring.
cards. What'd you say?
Hmm. They're just boring.
Yeah. Like then like there's also been more changes in the metagame than people seem willing to give credit for because they don't feel like changes in the metagame. Like we've gone from the sort of Sam Wilson Agamotto dominated meta to that deck not existing at all and people finding different shells for their Sam Wilson Juggernaut stuff, right? Like we've gone Thanos showed up out of nowhere, right? Like that was a really impactful OTA. It's just that they don't feel like they're really impactful because the Agamotto Sam Wilson deck, the Season Passler, just got replaced with another iteration of the Season Passler, and everyone's like, okay, well, Sam Wilson is still coming down. I still see that card all the time. I don't feel like anything changed. And there's another deck that's like, it's not literally the same deck, but it's operating in the same space, but like slightly more efficiently. And so people look at that and they're like, well, that's not actually changing anything.
I feel like what people want is uh they go back and they change a card, like a series one or series two card significantly, and then suddenly there's a new archetype
Yeah.
pops up, and you're just experimenting and doing new stuff you haven't ever done before. And I mean that's from OTAs, and then new releases. People want them to be impactful. Like people complain a lot when cards from the season pass or new series five cards are too strong, but I feel like that's just a vocal minority when in reality, when they're not too strong, this happens.
Yeah, I think that people are going to complain regardless, but I think on the whole, it is better for this game to release cards too strong than too weak.
I agree 100%.
I wanted to talk about, I guess this is just another thing that's like, they're not getting any credit for this change actually happening because it's an archetype we're all kind of familiar with. But Ajax is definitely among the best decks in the game right now. And there's like 3 different builds of it. There's the classic 4 drops Ajax. There's the version that is going with Miles and Sam Wilson. And then there's the hybrid between those with the high Evo Abomination from the Miles Sam Wilson deck fused into the 4 drops Ajax deck. I've been messing around with it. I kind of think what I really want to do is just get Luke Cage into the Miles Sam Wilson deck at this point. Like I have been messing around with it and like I can't figure out exactly what the best build is, but that one's the one that speaks to me right now. I do think that it's very funny that like we talk about like all these different builds of Ajax, and there's something that's been staring me in the face that I haven't really processed, which is that if you're playing the version of Ajax with the Miles Sam Wilson High Evo A-Bomb in it, one of the cool things you get out of playing that version of the deck is that you get to be a Sam Wilson deck. Like, oh, right, yeah, that's a good thing to do. It's actually good to be playing Sam Wilson. We have like a good 2-drop. That's awesome. Maybe I should just be playing Sam Wilson in my other versions of this deck instead of Scorpion or whatever. Maybe that's just like the actual competitive advantage that the deck has. But again, like Ajax has always been around. And like the person who actually brought back that explosive Ajax deck did so by looking at a deck I was playing 6 months ago and being like, oh, let me put the Miles Sam Wilson thing in here. And I know that because I talked to them about it. Like they literally went through one of my tier lists and did that. His name is Cougar. And that is, again, it's one of those things. It's one of those changes where it's like, it is a meaningful change. If you're really steeped in the metagame, the Ajax stuff coming out as a reaction to the Thanos stuff, that's a really meaningful change. It just doesn't feel meaningful because they've seen Ajax before. Everyone's seen Ajax before. They know what this is. Oh, cool. You're doing like a little bit of a fusion, but it's specifically like a riff on something that already happened rather than something new and exciting. And I think people, this is another situation where it's like Thanos is back, Ajax is back, Clog is back, and no one actually feels like these are new things happening.
I think we've been through that meta already. Like that,
Yep.
the exact same meta was existed like a few months ago. I think that's the problem. Like it feels a little bit circular. Like we're regressing into old metas instead of progressing into new, different, exciting stuff. But yeah, Ajax is a very good card. I've been saying it for a while now that I feel like Affliction is underrated at the moment, and it's extremely powerful because literally no one is running Luke Cage after the Luke Cage nerf, and it's just free to roam. It's just free to do its thing, and um, it's it feels a little bit too strong right now. It got some cool new toys with Laufey and Diamond Bag in some cases, and it just feels very, very, very powerful. Whenever I play against it, my, if I'm not running Luke Cage, my only option is to retreat because I can't deal with the amount of power they're putting there. Uh, and I'm talking about people who know what they're doing. Like obviously you can outplay them, maybe just play with Prio and then Shang-Chi, one of their big cards, or if you're running some kind of tech, you can deal with it. But if you're just playing the numbers game, it's very difficult to deal with it.
I think there's another thing that this deck has that like specifically is a big part of it is that Affliction is really good at beating a bunch of small stuff. And there's a lot of decks that are doing that right now. Affliction is really good at taking your 2/5 and making it a 2/2, and you feel stupid about that. Between Laufey and Hazmat and Man Thing, it's really good at taking your efficient cheap cards and making them not able to win lanes. And I think that that's a really relevant thing to note about how the deck plays out because of this. It's also a deck that I think one of the things I like about the A-bomb version of it is that it doesn't run 8 million 4-drops. But like when you get zabued on by the 4-4-drops version of this deck, that's horrifying. It is so scary because the 4-drops are where the real power of the deck is. Those are the cards that can legitimately threaten a lane in a meaningful way. Getting one of those down early is very, very, very strong. And so you have this deck that has a wide variety of haymakers that can sort of go into different positions. And then when it hits Zabu, it gets to do that 4+4 final turn some of the time, which is just super messed up. Just an extremely powerful thing to do. And I think it's good that Luke Cage is no longer good enough to be in a bunch of stuff. I think it's good that there are decks that, like, let's say other decks that splash Anti-Venom Luke Cage. Let's say that this deck becomes a massive piece of the metagame. Then you have the V-Hand deck splashing AV Luke Cage. You have the ongoing deck splashing AV Luke Cage that arise as natural predators to it. I think it's good. It's not a big enough part of the metagame to demand those predators arrive right now, but it is the kind of thing that has solutions waiting in the wings if it becomes too problematic. Snap packs will be out about 8 days after the release of this video, so we have a little bit to talk about. How have you adjusted your purchasing in any way, or have you adjusted your purchasing in any way in expectation of snap packs as someone who has like all the cards in the game?
Well, I haven't adjusted my purchasing at all. It feels worse to low roll now.
You're
That's
still
all that
opening
changed.
them.
Why wouldn't I open them?
I mean,
Like,
I've
how am
been
I going to get
spending
the card?
6,000 on them.
You've been spending 6K on them?
Yeah.
Well, well, on Ultron's case, I spent 2 keys. I got 2,000 tokens back, and I got Ultron, so I'm ahead.
Yeah, you are. I don't trust my own RNG that much. I've been 6King everything because it's like I don't really want to run the risk of 12King a card because if
Oh,
I
they don't
floor bang, I'm 12King, dude. Like
they
that's
don't call me
tough.
the one top man for nothing. You know what I mean?
Do
If I
they
don't
call
trust
you
my
that?
luck, huh?
Has anyone ever called you that in your entire life? Is that like a
I
thing?
called when this system came out, I one keyed my first like 10 cards.
You're
Yeah,
like the
it was
only guy
ridiculous.
who's going to be sad to see this system go, man.
No, I'm not. I hate the system. I hate the system. I hate the system not because I am unlucky with it, but because of what it does to the game. You
Sure,
know,
go on.
because it's a card acquisition system that may not be as bad as it feels, but it feels bad. So
Mm-hmm.
you just be just from the fact that it feels bad to interact with, that it is unfun to interact with, that when you're getting a new card, you don't feel happy, you feel relief that you didn't fall into the traps, right? So just that fact means it needs to go away. It needs to go away a long time ago. I'm just happy they finally decided to move along. And I made a video on YouTube uh, about uh, about the snap packs. And when I said they seem good, obviously we need to see how uh, it all plays out. We need to see how it's released. But on paper, from what we know, what we've seen, the videos we know, everything, they seem good. I mean, they're especially good for people like you and me that have all the cards. And
Mm-hmm.
they went over that in the video. They said, if you spend that much money and if you play that game that much, then it's just a little thank you from us. You get the cards easier now and so on and so forth. But it feels like they're good for the game because not only are people gonna have easier access to the cards they want and not, whenever they want them, like 6K may seem like a lot of tokens now. It won't be in the future. So a card that got buffed, you can grab it immediately, much faster than before. Um, so I like the new system. I have high hopes for it. I hope it brings more people back. One of the most common complaints I hear, though, everywhere is that it's not good for returning players and new players. I don't know that. It seems okay to me. It seems fine. It seems good. But also, what we don't know is that packs allow the company to be more generous. They can give you packs in events. They can give you packs when you come back to the game as a welcome back bonus. They can do so many different things that they couldn't do before, right? And they also move away from the from monetization system where it's all or nothing like they have now. The monetization system now, it feels like it doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room. And then the new one is going to do that, and I have very high hopes for it.
I'll say this. I see people complaining about the new player experience, and I think that's a little short sighted because when you talk about what the new player experience is when you're coming into the ability to like open these series 4 and 5 cards, you get like CL 500 or whatever, right? You are mostly gated by can you build one good deck. You are not gated by the amount of Series 5 cards you have, which I do expect will probably be slightly less, although it doesn't have to be, because if you want the experience of opening a bunch of random Series 5, you can do that for 4,000 tokens and make that volume up right there. You can just do that. You can just go spend every 4,000 tokens, get your random Series 5, and you'll have a rate that is not far off from the opening of 4 new cards on the collection on the in these caches, right? You will not
And on
like
the track.
yeah, you will not have rate that's like super far off from when you are first opening spotlight caches if you just go 4K on it. I don't know exactly where the inflection point is for what it's worth.
But when you're opening, what people aren't talking about is that the spotlight caches are created in such a way that they contain at the very minimum one series 4 card and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes two. So you're not getting a bunch of, like, I feel like people are being disingenuous about, I don't know if that's the right word, by the way, about the new system. They just want to complain about the new system. We don't know the new system. We haven't seen the new system. So praising it or complaining it, both are equally bad right now. It looks good on paper. And then it's what you said just now. Like, the most important thing for the new player experience is that new players will be able to target and create a meta deck much faster, a complete meta deck much faster than they can now. And if the meta is an indication, the meta rotates right now. Is that it rotates, right? Like that deck might get nerfed, but it's going to come back at some point, and you're going to have the cards because you built it before. So I feel like new players are going to be able to build a couple of meta decks much, much faster than they can now. And that's the most important part. That's going to elevate the new player experience rather than having a bunch of random cards, like you said.
I think it's worth considering, though, that it elevates the new player experience mostly in the context of someone who's highly invested, right? If you aren't constantly thinking about the best thing to do, which can get exhausting, you make like one bad decision, it'll set you back like 2 weeks, right? Like if you the more you there are so many more ways for you to mess up in this new system. And I think that while there are a lot of ways to like, pick and choose and do the golden path to a meta deck very early, that requires being, a KM best viewer. Like you gotta like know what's good all the time and make informed decisions and guess what they're gonna nerf and all of that stuff. And it's like that is an upside that I think like will be felt by new players, that they will be able to get to competitive decks faster under this new system. I don't think that's going to be very arguable. But that is also coming along with a bunch of different ways for someone who isn't fully optimizing their spend here to just like mess up. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or whatever, but it is notable that this is a system that released with the name Snap Packs. And as far as I can tell, you're almost never supposed to buy a snap pack. Like, if you're optimizing your spend, you shouldn't engage with what the system is named after. And it's just like, that is, like, there's just a lot of ways for you to mess up. There's just a lot of them. And so, even though I think for a very smart person, picking their way to a good deck will get easier, dramatically easier, I do think that there are still these sort of pitfalls that are now fall into a bowl that will make the system feel worse for people who aren't doing that.
That's fair, but the pitfalls that you talked about, like the traps, I think exist within every card game. Like if you aren't informed, how in the world are you even going to know what's the top
Sure.
meta deck?
Yeah.
You need to be informed, and you need to do a Google search, basically. Just do a search, and you're going to find what you're looking for. I did not think of it in the way that you shouldn't be opening packs because it's not good in your progression towards a meta deck. But that is a very fair point. That is a very fair point. Maybe they should consider a higher discount when you're opening packs so people can, engage with the packs more. But at the same time, I feel like if you want to enrich your collection, we are going to be getting a lot of tokens. Like someone did the math from what we know, and it's somewhere around the ballpark of 25,000 per month, which is
That seems insane.
yeah, which is a lot. Like between the gold you're getting, between the that you can convert to tokens now, and the tokens you're getting from the track, the tokens you're getting daily. There's gold in wherever, and if you have the season pass, it's even more. I don't know if that number is correct. I did not check their math, but that is a lot of tokens, and that is a lot of cards that people are going to be able to get, and a lot of targeted cards or random cards. Like if you're opening the 4,000 pack, that's 6 of them, and then you got some change. That's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
don't
cards, no?
know. I don't know the exact inflection point at which just opening the 4,000 pack versus the old spotlight key system it hits like, because the cards in the pack are never going to be the cards you own, whereas one of the cards or multiple of the cards in the old spotlight system could be cards you own. So I don't know the exact inflection point at which it becomes more efficient. I would guess probably like, I don't know, 20 or 30 cards into series 5, it becomes more, if the new system just buying all of them for 4,000 becomes just a better thing to do. I don't know exactly when that happens, but I know it does happen at some point. But I do think that like the vast majority of engagement in this system will be picking and choosing the 6Ks, and then if you have a full collection, it'll be 5K and 2.5K, right? Like that's what'll be happening. You'll get your full collection discount. Like I feel wary about advocating for this system because I think it is clearly good for me. I just don't think a system should be good for me. Like I know that sounds weird, but it's like these systems shouldn't be good for me. They've got me locked in. I get to write this stuff off on my taxes, dude. I already get like a 30% discount on everything just because of that. It's not like it's free, but it's like a somewhere in the range of like 20 to 30%. I get to write this stuff off on my taxes. They shouldn't be catering to me. They should be catering to everyone else. And I think that there is a reasonable concern that like this increased agency is beneficial to high info players. This increased agency is beneficial to people like me, and it's most beneficial to people like me who have all the cards already. And I think that like that is not the shape of a system that I would like. And the thing that keeps me liking snap packs is that despite having that shape, it still looks like an upgrade for everyone else too.
Um, yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. I just I was looking for things to complain about and I couldn't find them. You found them. That's good. But I don't know. I'm weirdly optimistic, and the reason I'm optimistic is that it feels like since the new year, I don't know if the publisher had anything to do with it or it
Mm.
coincided with the changing of the publisher. Uh, they've been weirdly generous and open-handed about new card. Like you get a new card, you get a new card, everyone gets a new card, and it feels like they kind of turned the page from all the uh, you know, nickel and diming, and every single card needs to be expensive and an experience and all that. It feels like they changed their philosophy, and it feels like they are leaning more into people should have the cards, people should be able to play the game, and if they're playing the game and they're having fun, they're going to spend money instead of people should spend money to play the game. You know what I mean? And I like that.
Going from relative positivity to the most annoying deck on Earth, Clog has revived itself, and I really want to talk about the specific inclusion that has done this. I forget the name of the player who first did this, and I know it sounds ridiculous to give someone credit for putting Enchantress in a deck because it's like, oh wow, what a genius, he put Enchantress in the deck. But I do think that it does sort of bear, it's worth talking about for like one specific reason, which is Enchantress turns your opponent's Sam Wilson into a card that clogs them. A lot of how a Sam Wilson plays against Clog is using the shield in order to prevent you, the Clog player, from sending stuff over. And so having an actual answer to that, like, oh, they're going to leave their shield here, I'm going to Enchantress it. It also gives you a second level of mind games. I had someone snap me, they were playing Clog. I had a Sam Wilson. I thought that meant they were going to Enchantress my Sam Wilson. So I moved the shield out so it didn't get stuck there. They didn't Enchantress the Sam Wilson. Instead, they predicted the move and Green Goblined the lane that I moved the shield out of. Enchantress means that your baseline plays are better because people are playing around the Enchantress version of it, right? Like, this is a card that does a ton to deal with and take the number one thing that is good against you, which is something moving around, and turn it into something that is good for you, which is a 1/1 sitting on the board, unable to move. Very, very powerful. In most cases, I think lower on the ladder, people are just going to auto move their Sam every turn. If they move that shield into the 4th spot in a location, boom, Enchantress that turn, done. Like, that is it. You have your Clog, you get to win a lane with Cannonball. It is right there for you. And I think that the Enchantress has been a major part of why this deck can exist in a metagame that is so heavy on Sam Wilson, who would normally be such a good thing against the deck.
Well, credits to whoever made this deck. I feel like Enchantress is not the only new card I'm seeing here. Doc Ock is a card that has not been seen in a long, long time, especially in a Clog deck. I feel like after the nerf, people just stopped playing this card. They tried. It was experimented a little bit in this archetype, but people moved away from it. This deck looks like I have it right in front of me. This deck actually looks like the old. You remember that mill deck a long time ago? The
Yeah.
first mill deck that
The really,
became
really
popular.
before it became a tempo deck. Yeah.
Yeah, like it had Magik, Red Hulk, Cannonball, Dotok, Shadow King, and then all the mill cards, right? And it feels like it's that exact same deck where you replace Shang-Chi with Enchantress and then the mill package with the Clog package. It's, second of all, after I gave you credit, whoever made this, I don't like you at all because I hate this deck. This deck is the bane of my existence. I don't like, I feel like decks that limit the the baseline of the game, like the core of the game, whether it's spots to play your cards or cards from your deck or whatever that is, you know what I mean, or lanes to play your cards like Galactus. They should never be at the top of the meta. They should be like B tier decks that if you're really good at them, you can do well with them, but they shouldn't be like this easy to execute because it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to play against. And a lot of people are just going to turn off the game and just walk away. Like, you clock me 5 games in a row. I'm not turning on the game for a week. You know what I mean? It's not fun for both people. Not both people aren't having fun. It's not a fair game. Like you're just limiting the fundamentals of the game. Like the whole, oh, I have 16 slots, you have 16 slots. We play a fair game. Whoever did the best, whoever was smartest, whoever did the best tactic wins. But not in the case of these decks. So I don't really enjoy them. I don't really like them being meta. Well, but yeah, it's a smart deck. It's a strong deck. I hope it goes away.
Yeah, I'm very sorry I can't remember the name of the person who did this. It's one of the guys on the EU server in the FAK clan, I think, is the person who I saw getting credit for. But I cannot remember the name, and I am so sorry. And also, I want to say their name starts with an E, but I might be getting it mixed up with the card Enchantress, so I can't be sure. Along those lines, I think it's probably time to talk about Magik, who has sort of slowly become maybe I guess I don't know about slowly become. She's kind of always been a card that I kind of despise because she's never doing anything fair. It's always something just awful. And I think that holds up in this metagame where it's like Magik. What are the two decks that play Magik? It's Clog and Mr. Negative. And why are they playing Magik? Because that extra turn is 20 times better for them than it is for you. And that's a super not fun experience for like really obvious reasons, right? Like, it's just a card that is a factory of like, oh boy, guess this is happening. It's turn 5. They played a Magik after Mr. Negative. Guess I die. And like, there's a shocking lack of playable location removal right now. Like, outside of the Redstone and Thanos, there's really not a lot of decks that are packing it. Arishem is on the downswing. That was the main Legion deck. People are trying Infinity Ultron, so they're definitely not trying Legion, and there's just no built-in easy ways to get rid of a Magik lane, and that is giving Magik decks additional power, which, I mean, if you want to beat Magik decks, you totally can. Play those cards and rug pull them. I think it is a fundamentally fair card. I just think it's a card that I generally don't like because of what it does to games, or more specifically, because the only decks that play it are hoping to use it to do something like horrifically one-sided, which I think it is, in as much as this card can exist. If this is the fairest trade-off for doing something horrifically one-sided, which is like if your opponent interacts with it, you literally lose the game. That's a fair trade-off. I'm not going to sit here and say Magik is busted or anything like that. It's just that it only goes in decks that are trying to do something that just like eye roll inducing.
The issue with Magik is that is what you said. Like there's no good location manipulation cards that can be played in any deck outside of the Thanos one, and I feel like it's about time. I don't know why location manipulation is so highly costed into a card. Like they have such low power, or awkward cost, or they don't do enough. I feel like it's time Nocturne got a small buff and came back. It's a fun card. I feel like the back in the day when she was very strong, what happened was they changed the way. Now everyone knows how it works, but they changed the way cards move and the way moving cards works in the game. So it happens at the beginning of the turn. You can't sequence it like you used to before when Nocturne first came out. That change happened with her nerf, I think, or a week before her nerf, something like that. And I think that change was enough because back then, you could move Nocturne and sequence it so she moves last, and you don't have to worry if you get a bad location and all that. And it was enough to make her not as OP as she was. And I think when you're playing Magic, you need to have that fear of maybe they have a card that can remove my limbo. Right now, you don't have that fear. You're playing Magic with impunity. You're just dropping Magic, and you know there's going to be a turn 7 because no one is running those cards. So I feel like those cards maybe need to be looked at and slightly get buffed so they can fit in a couple of decks, and we don't have this. Oh, I'm playing Magic. There's going to be a turn 7, and I'm going to do things to you that
Suck.
we cannot talk about.
Yeah. There are two things that I wanted to dive into there. Number one, Nocturne Magik, actually a fairly interesting matchup, because if you play the Nocturne early, they Magic the lane the Nocturne is in. It cannot move to the Limbo lane. Two, though, is I think the reason that these cards are costed the way that they are, that it is such a downside to get rid of a location, that it is costed as a very powerful ability, is because over a long period of time, it is a very powerful ability. It makes games flatter in the sense that oh, I got some bad location RNG. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't get bad location RNG. And I think better players love that, right? They love that they have this inbuilt way in their deck to mitigate the thing that loses them games, which is location RNG, because you're a better player. So what are you losing to? It's location RNG. And if you get that for free, it has this effect of flattening games. And I don't think that they are able to do something like a 3/5 Nocturne or a 5/9 Legion or whatever, right? Because if they do that, suddenly what happens is that in some amount of games, the text on the location doesn't matter. And that is a greater amount of games than currently. I think a lot of good players love the idea of a bunch of medium play aroundable locations as opposed to ones that say you lose. You just lose the game. And there are definitely locations that just say you lose the game. But I think those locations are important because if all the locations were play aroundable, then there's not enough RNG in the game. And I think that there needs to be that, and that is why these cards are costed the way that they are. It's hard.
I feel like it's an upside, like removing all the horrible location. I feel like location RNG has gotten out of control, and if anything, buffing those cards and is a way to reel it back in without actually changing a bunch of locations, and you're able to print all these horrible locations that are being printed all the time. Like how many times I'm just sitting there and then I'm losing to location after location after location, and then I haven't even touched the game yet. Like I've played one card and I've already lost the game because of locations. Like I don't like that. I'd rather have strong location manipulation and change that luck and be able to play the game instead of having non-games because a bunch of horrible locations showed up, decided to, sequence themselves in a way that completely ruins my fun and my game. Like I want to play the game and lose to a better player or maybe a luckier player, but losing to locations flipping is one of the worst things, in my opinion, in this game. Right along losing to cheater bots.
I
But
think it
that's a
has to
different
happen.
subject.
I think it has to happen. I think that this is a game with 12 card decks that has inherent consistency that a lot of other card games do not, which means the RNG needs to be located somewhere. And right now, as much as people like to complain about it, it's not really located on the cards. There are some cards that randomly generate stuff. That's not most cards, though. Most of the RNG in Snap is located on locations, and they're the things that give games texture and make them feel different. And we've seen how people react when games and metagames don't feel different. Even if they are a little bit different, if they don't feel different, if they don't play different, people don't like that. And I think one of the secrets to Snap's longevity is that they put it in something that isn't related to the player in any way. Like, I think that it is a great place to put the RNG, but the RNG still has to exist. And cards that mitigate that RNG explicitly, I think, slant the skill curve of the game in a way that is probably bad. Like, it benefits a better player to remove locations more than it benefits a worse player a lot of the time. It benefits a better player even more to have the choice to remove locations more than it benefits a worse player a lot of the time. And I think that it should, like, right now, I think Marvel Snap lets worse players win a good amount of the time, and that's good for the health of the game long term.
I still I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it. I want the better player to win more often than he does now, and I like as I said, I think it's an elegant way to keep printing this. How many times, like, it's a hot location and you just don't play because it's just
Oh,
bad,
all
you
of
know?
them.
You just
I don't play
yeah,
any hot location.
yeah. Like, there was a point in time where the location number and the locations themselves were such where what you're saying, I would agree with 100%. Like, yeah, you don't give location manipulation, but at this point and at this point in the lifespan of the game, we have so many locations in the game that it's complete and utter RNG. And like, if I can change one of the three horrible locations that I rolled, I feel like that's not that bad, right? And you get so many bad locations so often now. Like, there's times where you can't play the game at all. Like, it's like, can't play cards here. Cards are destroyed if you play them here. You know, you can only play one card here. Like, just let me do something. You know, let
I'll
me
say
be
this.
able to change that a little bit so I can play the game and then lose to my opponent also playing the game.
I've seen a lot of Scarlet Witch recently. That's what I'll say. Like, of the location changers, she's the easiest to put in your deck, and she's not that bad.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's a 2/3. Yeah.
Last up, Harry thinks cards are too good, or decks are too good, or something is too good. What is it you think is too optimized right now, Harry?
It's not that I think decks are, well, that's one way to put it. Let me put it this way, okay? Let's take a deck that's existed for the longest time as is, probably more than a year now. Yeah, definitely more than a year now. Let's take Destroy, which hasn't fundamentally changed like a single card since Nico Minoru came out. It's been an X23. I think Nico Minoru came out after X23.
She did.
So since Nico Minoru came out, nothing has changed. So what is going to make this deck change if they print a card that's better than the 12 that already exist in this deck, correct? So the deck keeps getting more and more optimized and better and better and better at what it does. So that's just an example. This happens with every deck in this game, right? When they print a card that can kick out a different card from a deck, it means it's a better card, right? So the deck as a whole is becoming better. So where does that bring us? It brings us in a situation where if the decks become so good at what they do that if you don't have this specific counter to that deck, there's nothing you can do. And that's a problem I see, maybe not right now, maybe not exactly right now, that it's a problem that we're going to have in the future. I see it a little bit right now, like a deck that we talked about before, like affliction decks, right? They've printed so many good cards for that deck that if you aren't running the exact counter in, let's say, Luke Cage or Shang-Chi or whatever, then there's nothing you can do besides the retreat button, right? Like, because they're just going to overwhelm you. What they do, they're doing it way too good. They're way too efficient at what they do. So you can't really compete with them in a fair fight, and unless you completely outplay them. But that's a different issue. Like that's a skill issue, right? It's not a deck issue. So we're heading towards that direction. And honestly, I'm just pointing it out, but I don't have the experience or the knowledge or the know-how to say how we avoid that, or if it's bad that it's happening. It's just something that I've noticed. It's just something that
Yeah.
I've noted, and I think it's inevitable, and it's natural to happen in every card game that doesn't, rotate cards and doesn't have a ban list and whatnot whatsoever. It's not. That's how things are going to be, right? Because they need to print cards because that's how they make money.
Yeah, like I think there's a fundamental thing where not only are like here's the thing. When I used to think about this cycle where it's like the power creep cycle, I thought about it as like developers want to sell cards, right? But when you look at what's happening right now, it's not that developers want to sell cards, it's that the player base wants to buy strong cards. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
The player base has an appetite for new experiences. When those new experiences are powerful, they feel better, and that's what people are actually asking for. And I do think that in a game with 12 card decks, there is going to be like a world in which like we get to a point where it's like, how are we supposed to make a card that's better than Sam Wilson? Like, what are we supposed to do? And so you end up with a metagame like
Make
this
a new
where it's
card.
like, yeah, like it's just like they have to be really like it puts them in awkward situations with regards to balance, right? Because there are really three solutions to this. The first one is to be very heavy-handed and nerf the shit out of anything that is good for too long. And I mean like nerf it. Not like, oh, we're going to take a point off. Like Sam Wilson, he only gets +1 point now. Like stuff like that, where you're just like, I'm nuking this guy. Or Scream 2-0, nuke, drop nukes. But people hate that too because they bought those cards and they were awesome and they don't want to lose the experience of playing their awesome little card. And so then there's the other option, which is rotation, which again, people hate that. I bought these cards, now I can't play them. What are you doing to me? I can't play these cards. So then there's the third option, which is what if you made decks bigger? Like, how much of a problem would this be if we had 18 card decks? Or, like it was like once you start going through the actual realistic options, which are both very sort of anti-player or anti-consumer, right? They're taking something that you paid for and they're saying, I don't know about that anymore. And it's the correct decision for the health of the game, but it feels bad. What if you have to just be like, and they've been, to their credit, I think they have actually been experimenting with this, where it's like you have decks like Thanos and RSM that are like sort of soft moving in that direction that are very different from every other experience in the game. But I don't necessarily know what other solutions I can come up with. Like, make the decks bigger so there's more room for people to like put their own twist on something is the best I've got. And that's a really hard sell, I think.
I just, I agree with everything you said. Like I don't want to be in their shoes. Like
Yeah.
it's a problem that's going to show up. Whether it's currently a problem, I feel like it's not really. It's something I've noticed, and it's something that's happening, and it's something that's going to happen even more in the future because they have to print new cards, and if the new cards aren't good enough, they're not going to make the cut, and if they are good enough, they're just going to make the deck that much better.
And
So
then make it harder for newer cards to make the cut. Like, that's literally the power creep cycle, and it's so intense because there's only 12 cards.
yeah, and I feel like the most elegant solution that has existed since the beginning of card games is rotating cards, but we don't do that here. And this is the only solution that anyone has ever come up with that's actually, worked. Everything else is just going to hit a wall at some point. If you do not, the way they're doing it in this game is by rebalancing it all the time. But that's why I brought the example of Destroy, because Destroy hasn't changed at all for the longest time. Like it hasn't been rebalanced. It got buffed a little bit, like Wolverine, I think, got a point recently. And that's why I brought that example up. And I don't know. Like I definitely don't think it's good, but I also don't know if there's a solution, or if there's anything anyone can do.
On that incredibly optimistic note, it's time to bring this episode to a close. Thank you, Ordinary Harry, for guest hosting on another extra long episode of 8 Cubes. This was like, I'm looking at the, like, it's probably going to edit to shorter than it is right now, but I'm looking at the time on the bottom of my recording and it's like over an hour. It's probably going to edit down to like 57 minutes, but like, we really, like, I messaged him. I was like, do you have any topics? And he was like, no, I'm just ready to yap. And he was just like, yeah, like, all right. Like, you know.
I'm sorry, I just love talking snap with you, dude. Like I feel embarrassed now. I think I feel hot. Like I'm probably red. I just I love talking snap with you because we respect each other's opinions, but we don't share the same opinions. And
We
it's
disagree on like every single thing.
but I love talking about Snap with you because you open my eyes like to things that you know what I didn't think of it like that, and that's a good I think I said that a couple of times today, and I think that's a good way of expanding your horizons and looking at different points of views and learning about the game you love so much, and I feel like it's also good for the viewer when they get to see two people discussing from different point of views, and that's why I enjoy it so much.
It's why my most common guest hosts are you and Binks, because this show is so often me and Lamby just being like, say a thing, and the other person is like, you're exactly right. and so like we have a lot of the same perspectives on card games, and we approach things from a similar place. Sometimes we evaluate cards differently, but mostly our approaches match. Whereas someone like you or someone like Binks, it's going to be a very different approach. And for the same reason, it's like I've got blinders on, and my blinders are very prominent, and you will have a different perspective in a meaningful way. And I think we see that in the way the audience responds to the guest hosts. So like obviously it's been a nice thing to have you guys on. So thank you for doing it. And make sure you let everyone who's watching this long, who watched the Yap Sesh, know where they can find you.
Oh, it's at Ordinary Harry everywhere. I have a Twitter account that I don't really
Yeah.
use anymore, but yeah, Twitch,
Reasonable.
YouTube, they're both active, and it's Ordinary Harry all over the place. I'm gonna go back and watch a Binks episode because I'm interested to see Binks. In my head, he's
Huh?
probably coming from my point of view, but a little bit more extreme. Because from watching his streams, he really, really goes deep into the weird fun decks
Yes.
that I like to play too.
I will say I don't think you can watch a Binks episode because you just won't be able to tell us apart. I've gotten a lot of comments to the effect of like, wow, there's two Binkses, or wow, there's two KMs. It's happened a lot. And I just two white guys with beards chilling. Like apparently it's impossible to tell us apart. What do you know? Just two white guys with like chubby cheeks and beards, and you can't tell the difference, folks. That's the end of the episode.